Wow, I'm so excited to be here. I'm Siyabonga Beyile, founder and creative director of The Threaded Man. You know, when I was coming here today, I was like, I didn't know what I was going to write about. I was sitting, I was like, should I talk about success? Should I talk what success means? And to be quite honest, you guys are my peers, I also don't know what success means. I know, I don't know what the keys to success are. I believe that all of us have a story. All of us go through circumstances, and each and every day we are faced with decisions, and those decisions determine what the outcome of our future is. So today I decided that I'm going to share with you guys my story and talk you through sort of the trials that I've been through and how I have shifted my future to be where I am today. So my story begins, oh snap, go. The technology, can you Okay. There we go. So I was born on the 7th of December, 93, to a closer family from the Eastern Cape. For about 6 months, God gave me the yellow bone pass, but soon, he was like, nah, fam, you need to be a chocolate boy. But growing up, I was very loved by my family. What I learned from a young age is that my mother always said, and I need to be proud of that. So in growing up in high school, I still remember like when I was packing my lunch, my mom used to make me traditional meals, guys, like musho would be packed in my school lunch, pokoko. And I would get to school, and, you know, the white kids would be like, oh, what is that? Oh, it stinks. Oh, my God. And then I would go home and cry and tell my mom, yo, mama, you're embarrassing me, this food, dog. Can you put me on something nicer? And she'd be like, no, you need to be proud of your culture. But my life shifted when I was about 14. My parents went through a very bad divorce. There was domestic abuse. A couple of times my mom tried to commit suicide. She went into a hectic depression. At that point, my safe blanket was taken away from me. My mom was left with 3 boys to raise by herself, and she now had to work 2 jobs. We moved into a smaller place, and I remember that we moved into a smaller place like the day before I started grade 8. I was going to start grade 8 on the Monday, and I remember on the Sunday, the geyser burst in the house, and everything was drenched in water. And I remember I stayed up with my mom all night while she was crying to clean up the house. And I went to school without even sleeping on my first day. And so I went to Wamba Boys High School. And in going to school, my mom told me that she couldn't give me what the other kids had. We must understand that she has to work 2 jobs. She wouldn't be able to come to our rugby games and school functions. We had to grow up and actually work. In school, I did everything. You know, I felt like I wasn't talented, but I remember being like, you know what, if I don't feel talented, the one thing I must have is that no one can outwork me. So I played rugby, I did culture, I did debating, I went to academic after classes, so literally I did everything. But by matric, while people were applying into universities, I applied as well. People were getting acceptance letters, getting scholarships, people were excited. Every university I applied to, I didn't get accepted. Not even the ones I thought were like the lower end ones, like they just didn't accept it. The cream of the crop is seen as UCT, Wits, you know, Pretoria University. I applied to those. They turned, even like I had a list of 12 that I applied to, they all turned me down. And I told my mom, and my mom was like, you need to repeat your matric. You know, I had passed, but the marks were not great. And I said to her, ish, I can't repeat matric, and I don't see myself really going to university. But at the end of that year, since I'm closer, I went to the bush to become indoda. And as you see, because I went to a very formal boys' school, it was always stressed on us to always, you know, suit up, dress well, cut our hair, and it was also mimicked in our culture as well, indoda, that you need to dress well. And upon coming back from the bush, my mom said, I'm like, what do you mean umfana othungiweyo? She's like, don't just be threaded through the clothes that you wear, but you need to step up and be a man. And what it means to be a man surpasses what you wear. It's about how you treat people, it's about how you treat women, importantly. So I was like, when you translate Umfano Tungwe, it translates to the threaded man. And I remember I've always had because I'm Xhosa and the way Xhosa people like to dress, I always loved dressing. I always loved clothes. So I remember reading through a GQ, and I remember like each page I saw, there was just no black people. It was just a bit awkward. I'm like, this is GQ South Africa, but I mean, there's no black people. Men's Health magazine, same story. Any fashion publication I opened, especially for men's fashion, there was just no black representation. So I had this great idea. I was like, how about I start a portal called The Threaded Man, where I give black people style advice, you know? And at that time, I was the kind of guy who didn't have money, so I used to DIY all my clothes and switch it up. So I was like, let me start a portal where I can start a conversation to other guys who don't have money, to other guys who can afford expensive clothing, and talk to them about fashion and start a conversation. Because I wanted to do everything properly, I decided, okay, let me Google the top fashion school. So I Googled and Lysoft came up. So clicked into Lysoft, so it was in Johannesburg, in the design district. I said to my mom, I really, really want to go to this fashion school. And the first question she asked me was, are you gay? I was like, why do I have to be gay to go into fashion? I'm not gay, but I really love clothing. So she's like, Siyabonga, andiyithandi le nto yakho yeempahla. How are you going to make money from this? So already there was a stigma. And because I liked this fashion idea, my friends all played rugby, most of them. And they all did sports. Some went on to be doctors. And my friends were like, we're not going to be friends with someone who goes into fashion. Like, that's not cool. So I lost friends as well. But I pushed on. I was like, I want to do this thing. I want to start a Threaded Man. I'm not creative, but I think this is something I can really do because there's a gap in the market. So I moved to Johannesburg with nothing but my backpack, my suitcase, I mean. I took a bus, I remember, a Greyhound. It was the longest trip I've ever taken. And upon arriving to Johannesburg, I went to Lysoft and I was like, guys, I'm here, but I don't have a place to stay. Please help me out. So Lysoft ended up putting me in an apartment, but the apartment was 15 kilometers away. So every day I had to walk to school because I couldn't afford the taxi. I didn't have furniture. I had to sleep on the floor. And also, I discovered like 1,000 ways of how to cook potatoes in a different way. So Monday I had mash, Tuesday fries, baked potato, boiled potatoes. So that was quite cool and quite challenging at the time. And also, fashion school was actually horrible. My mom had taken out all her savings to put me in fashion school, but I got there and I failed. I wasn't creative, I couldn't design. All the other students had fancy design machines and could do all these drawings I couldn't do. I just didn't fit in. And I remember in class, we used to be asked, what do you want to be? And I was like, I want to start this portal, and I can believe it's going to be the largest in Africa. I can change the world. This could be the Apple of my generation. And everyone was like, this guy's delusional. You're failing all your subjects. And all the other students we're going to be fashion editors. We're going to be at New York Fashion Week. So I just really felt lonely, and I just didn't fit in. But I really had a strong finesse for fashion trends and theory. And that's what I really focused on, because I really enjoyed that, because it taught me why people wear clothes the way they do. And that started to trigger sort of into my culture. Why do we wear black during funerals? Why do we wear certain colors? And I really enjoyed that. So in the February of my first year at Lysoft, I started my portal, The Threaded Man, which at that time had like 5 views in a month. No one really bothered to open it, but I still believed in this dream. At the end of the year, my mom told me that, listen, dude, like, you've been in Joburg wasting my money, wasting my time, pulling the plug. I can't afford it anymore. You've got 2 younger brothers who are in high school, so it's either you come to Cape Town or you figure out what you do. So I said to her, we had a long fight, but I said to her, Mom, I really believe in this, and I want to stay regardless of whether you can afford to support me or not. So she cut me off. So from there, I decided to knock on every single door. I sent David Tlale like 100 emails. I sent AFI. Anybody in fashion will tell you that I was that annoying kid that sent emails on a daily basis. But the cool opportunity that came about was that one of my lecturers, Nicola Cooper, was going to be working for Dion Chang. And she wanted sort of an assistant, a sort of an apprentice to work with her on her project. So yeah, I ended up getting an intern gig with Dion Chang, which was paying 300 rands a month. And I was working every Monday to Sunday, 9 to 5 every day, doing research. But more than the little money I was being paid, what it gave me a way to leverage. So now I was like, I work for Dion Chang, so that can get me into, I started using that to get into events. So I would sit on Twitter and check what event is coming up and find out from the people what events are coming out. I used to pitch up at events, uninvited, no one knew who I was, and all I said was, I work for Dion Chang, and they would allow me in. So through that, I started sneaking into Fashion Week as well. At Fashion Week, I'd be like, I'm not accredited, but I work for Dion Chang. So I started using Dion Chang's name to get into events. And eventually he caught me. And he was like, dude, you can't use my name to get into events, otherwise I'm going to fire you. So, and this was 3 months down the line. But I discovered that during the time that I was working for Flux Trends is that I'd hoped that by interning, I could tell them about this threaded man, and hopefully they would see the light and be like, cool, Siya, we're going to help you with it. But that never happened. He was like, dude, this is not going to work. You need to pay your dues, and the industry doesn't see this concept working. So again, I decided to resign from Dion Chang and said, look, dude, I really believe in this dream, and I really want to make this happen. And at this point, I didn't have anything. I didn't have money. I was sleeping in a dodgy place, and so I had nothing to lose. That made me even more determined to make this happen. I was like, there's nothing anyone can take away from me, not even this dream, so I can make it happen. Then through online and pushing the blog and everything, started getting a following. A lady called Sylvia Skitter, who's up there, found me, and she was like, hey, Siya, I see that you're running this threaded man thing. It looks really cool. I'm kind of interested in it. I was like, okay, cool. This lady is going to help me. And then she's like, cool, but first I want you to intern for Stratetude. So I said to her, but dude, I've been interning, I've been trying, no one is believing in my dream. Please help me out. She's like, dude, just intern for me, and let's see this threaded man thing. So while I was interning for her, every single day or every 2 days, she would ask me a question about a threaded man. Where do I see it going? How do you take a blog and turn it into a business? Have any bloggers turned their blogs into a business? I was like, no, but I really think there's a gap in the market. So eventually she believed in it, and she was like, cool, Siya, let's invest in this blog of yours. Cool, she invested, but now what? So she's like, cool, Siya, I'm putting money into you, what do we do now? So I'm like, cool, let's redesign the website. So I relaunched the Threaded Man, bought a domain and everything, went to brands. I remember going to PR agencies that represent brands and be like, I've opened this cool website. I'm keen for you guys to work with your brands. I approached Adidas, Levi's, any brand, Coca-Cola, and they all turned me down. And they're like, what is this? This is not going to work. There's no market for this. You don't have views on your website, so how do you expect this to work? So I decided to go back to the drawing board, and I started stalking international bloggers about how they started their business. I started reading about Facebook, reading about Amazon, all these digital brands that have made it big, and I started doing business strategy. So I approached Sylvia. I was like, can you please help me come up with a business plan? Please mentor me. Let's actually think of this as a business. These are the kind of services that I would like to have for the Threaded Man. So after doing a proper business proposal, we did a rebranding, and we relaunched the website like that. And so now there was much more of a clear direction and a way of finessing this website. And then I decided that I was thinking about this the wrong way. I was shaping the future of my company the wrong way, in a sense that I was so focused on launching this website and then going to brands, instead of launching the website and focusing on the people reading the website. And that's what I decided to focus on. So I started thinking about, cool, I'm a dude, so what kind of stuff do I like to read and I don't like to read? And I started building my content around that and building authentic content. And that's when the Threaded Man started growing, getting more views. And the coolest thing about Threaded Man is that our biggest consumers started in Nigeria. So our biggest views originated first from Nigeria, then it was Kenya, then it was Ghana, then it became South Africa. So South Africa was the last country to sort of accept or follow the Threaded Man. Then I got an interesting call from a guy called Sylvester. Sylvester runs a company called DNA Brand Architects. They represent a number of brands, and one of them was a new beer brand called Flying Fish. At the time, they were looking for influencers, and they were like, Siya, tell us about the Threaded Man. What do you want to do? We're looking for cool influencers for this. They want to specifically use bloggers. So I told them about the concept of this website and this portal, and then they were like, cool, let's try this thing out. This was my first Flying Fish ad, and that was first my biggest client. Flying Fish, I remember the day I got that EFT, I was like, oh my God. Wolo. So it was such a relief, guy. Yo, EFT. The moment it came in, I was like, oh my God, I've made it. So this was my first client, was Flying Fish. And Flying Fish opened so many doors for me. So with Flying Fish, there were also other influencers. One of those influencers was a lady by Nomuzi Mabena. I'm sure you guys know her as Muesli, musician, MTV-based VJ. So on a trip to Limpopo. So now, with the Threader Man working with Flying Fish, we started getting more clients. So now the website was starting to generate some sort of income. And then from there, I went on a road trip for Flying Fish for Flavor Fest with this young lady, Nomuzi, who I met on the trip. And she was like, oh, I've seen your website, it's kind of cool. I'm looking for a stylist. Do you want to style me? So I was like, yeah, of course. Guys, I don't know how to do styling for Jack. But I was like, yeah, I'll do it. Yeah, I'll get the clothes, I'll do this thing. So I accepted the opportunity. And then she called me when we got to Joburg. She's like, cool, this is my music video I want to do. Go get me clothes. I'm like, how am I going to get these clothes now? So I started emailing brands saying, listen, I'm a stylist for Nomuzi. Please give me clothes. So I hadn't learned how to be a stylist or how to speak to brands, but I learned through trials, through accepting these opportunities and just throwing myself in the deep end. But eventually, 2 years down the line, we built a very strong brand with Nomuzi, and we signed a lot of deals such as Adidas, and we shot a couple of campaigns together, and this was one of them. And then fast forward to this year, where over the last couple of years, the Threaderman blog really, really grew very well. Started making income, could hire people, 1 or 2, 3 or 4, and then it grew into a publication. But then I discovered that blogs are actually dying. People don't like to read anymore. There's Instagram, there's Snapchat, there's video content. So what would be the next step for my company? So how could I extend the brand? I'd been doing styling, but I started getting restless about, what could I do? So I thought, so basically I've been acting as a bridge between, my readers and brands, but now how could I actually help brands on a bigger scale to reach a much bigger market, help them on their advertising strategies, and actually use what I've learned through my portal and apply it to brands' campaigns. So you guys remember when H&M launched in South Africa? There was a big debacle where when you walked into an H&M store, there was just like white people and ads all over. And we all took to Twitter to say, how can you open in our country and not use black models? Where's Joan Smalls? Why aren't you shooting here in South Africa? And I got a call from Sweden, and they were like, listen, we've launched in South Africa. We need your help to revamp H&M and introduce it to the South African market. And we want you to do a women's campaign. So mind you, I run a men's fashion portal, but these guys are briefing me on women's wear. But I was like, you know what? I'll accept it, and we shall figure it out. And Sim there is my right-hand woman, and she was like, Siya, are you crazy? What are you doing with this company? I was like, dude, let's just do it. It's work, it's money. Let's do this thing. And we decided to do the H&M campaign, and it was meant to be a local campaign for South Africa, but it ended up being a global campaign and launching in stores worldwide. So it was our first international campaign. And then from there, the campaign got caught by Tommy Hilfiger, and we ended up shooting a Tommy Hilfiger campaign, which was also showcased in New York this year as well. So now the company was naturally growing into other fields. From there, I was speaking at another conference where I met Mahlatsi. And at that conference, I was talking about my portal, the Threader Man, and how I wanted to change fashion in award shows and everything. And one of the speakers at the conference was Rufilo Ramakhosi, who is the CEO of the Summers. So after speaking, he's like, hey, young man, I heard what you were saying about fashion in the country. Would you like to style the Summers? So I'm like, yeah, sure, I can do this. Imam, I'm like, oh, snap, how am I going to do this? But I'm like, yeah, dude, totally. I thought he was joking. I thought he wouldn't do it. Who would give a 22-year-old the Summers? What a joke. I was like, in my mind. But a week later, he calls me into his office. He's like, are you ready to style the Summers? Can you make this happen? I'm like, of course I can. I do it. I accept the job. And I remember after we signed the contract, I get back to the office. I'm like, Sim, we are doing the Summers. She's like, what do you mean we're doing the Summers? I'm like, we're styling the whole Summers. She's like, do you understand styling the Summers? There's performers, there's artists, there's dancers. That's like over 100 outfits. I'm like, oh, I didn't know. So, but anyways, I was like, you know what? I pushed through. I was like, you know what? We can actually do this. We can make it work. So we decided to do the Summers. Spoke to all the brands I worked with. I even ended up using some of the guys I studied with at fashion school to make dresses for me as well, that I'd conceptually designed. We also worked with the DFF as well in Durban, and eventually everything came together. And this is one of my favorite dresses that I'd helped design for Kanye Mbao, who was one of the hosts. And during the same week, I got a call from Forbes magazine, and they were like, dude, we think you're doing quite well in this fashion thing, and you're part of the Forbes 30 under 30 list. I'm like, oh, that's dope. That's pretty cool. So that got released as well. And then as I said before, I'm someone who's really proud of my culture. And no matter what I do and no matter where I go, it's something that I carry with me. So when I got invited to New York to represent, young entrepreneurs who are doing great things in South Africa, this is how I showed up, in my African attire. Just like to not blab for too long, is that I believe that every single one of us sitting here has a story. And most of the time, we live in an era where it's driven by social media. So I know I stalk the Kardashians. I love Kanye West. And all the time, when we're looking through social media, because we're so overconsumed by digital, we start to become carbon copies of those American stars. We start dressing like them. I mean, if you go to Braum, how many Travis Scotts do you see on the street? So we end up losing ourselves. And within losing ourselves, we lose our culture. And what I'm trying to say to you guys today is that be proud of your story. Be proud of your struggles. Be proud of your culture. There is no better time to be black and to be African. Black is magic. Your culture is magic. And that's what makes you unique. Most of the time is that when you look at successful people on TV, you're like, maybe I should do that. Maybe I should become a presenter. But you forget that some of your biggest inspiration can be within you. Your story could lead to what makes you successful. So today I want to challenge you to not sit and look at other people and think they're more special than you. You think they're more talented than you. That's why they're successful. I challenge you to look within yourself, to say, what makes me happy? What have I been through? What can I do with what's inside me? And you'll find that I believe that every single one of us are not here by mistake. No matter what you're going through, no matter what you're battling at home, no matter what's happening, you don't have money, you have money, the point is your life is not a mistake, and no one can take that away from you. Every single one of you here are here for a purpose, and the world needs your talent. The world needs you to be your true self. And when you become your true self and you do what you love, you start to become happy from the inside. Most of the time, people that don't follow their dreams are bitter. They hate on other people. They criticize all the time. You don't want to become that person. You don't want to become unhappy. So I want to say to you, follow your dreams, embrace who you are, love who you are. And no matter what happens, guys, I believe that black people are magic. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Siyabonga Beyile.
Yes,
Guys, that was really, truly something inspirational. Give him another round of applause.
Thank you.